Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mammoth Site video series about the Larramendy Mammoth Skull from Channel Islands National Park. Today we're going to look a little bit at the tusks of this mammoth and some of the interesting features. So this skull, when we found it, we were lucky enough to find a skull that actually had both tusks intact, which is pretty rare. And so, we're pretty excited about that. I haven't quite gotten to actually prepping out the base of the tusks yet, or the surface of the tusks, but what we're going to be talking about is just the overall tusk shape. So one of the interesting things about this guy is that his tusks are actually a little bit crooked. So if you see the mammoth here, and you look down the center of the skull, a mammoth skull, like any other mammal skull, is basically going to be symmetrical. So down the midline, from the forehead to the nose, down the front of the skull, should be symmetrical side to side. But on this guy, if you look down the center, so we've got the center of the forehead here, we go over the middle of the nose, down the center of the tusk sockets, and the skull is pretty symmetrical, except for some places where it's a little bit cracked. But if you look at the tusks, you'll notice that this tusk here curves up and goes right up to the center line, whereas the other tusk, the left tusk, has a really big gap, so his tusks are pretty crooked. And there's a couple different reasons why that could be. So Justin, our Bonebed curator, is going to talk a little bit about what we might be looking at here.
Hi everybody. So what we see here, as Monica pointed out, is this tusk comes closer to the midline than this tusk. So one of the reasons that could be is mammoths use their tusks and they wear them down at the tips throughout their life. So it could be that this animal prefers his left tusk, which is to my right, and he's just wearing it down through use. Alternatively, because we think this animal is probably a male mammoth, he may have gotten into a fight and broken off this left tusk tip here. And then over the lifetime after that fight, he's had to wear that down. Now, because this one didn't get broke, it actually wound up being much, much longer and thinner. As Monica pointed out, it actually would have come right about here when we found it in the field. But I'll let her talk about why it's not that way right now. The other issue is that as these animals fight, they're actually going to slightly dislodge those tusks each time they beat one another with them. Okay, so then after the fight, that part of the tooth has to heal inside the skull, and it might be slightly changed in orientation. So another thing that people ask me about our mammoths here at the Mammoth site is that, well, could the tusks possibly be deformed by the weight of dirt and time on them? And while that's possible, it's really, really unlikely. And the reason for that is because tusks are very brittle material, kind of just like bone. They don't respond so well to all that pressure in a plastic ware in a way that lets them bend more than break. So had we had enough force to change that tusk, it probably would have broke instead of bent and deformed.
Is it possible that he's just crooked?
It is.
Screw that way?
It is possible. So when we look at modern elephants, we see the fact that their tusks generally go forward or a little bit out, but the bulls and the females in African elephants, they can both have either symmetrical or one that looks like a normal elephant tusk, and then one that goes off in a very strange direction, or comes really tightly curved in, or just very, very straight. So we get that variation not only in modern elephants, but also in mammoths. Now the difference between modern elephants and mammoths is that in our mammoths we tend to have more curvature in the tusk. And we see that both in the Columbian mammoths and to a much more extreme degree in our woolly mammoths. And we're learning that pygmy mammoths also have somewhat that level of variation where they can be very, very straight. And once we figure out specifically what this fellow is, we might be able to say the same thing about pygmy mammoths having much, much more curved tusks.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody. That's this week's update on the Larramendy Mammoth Skull. If you were interested in learning more, be sure to check out the other videos we have on Facebook. But until next time, thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.